I'm here with Dr. Tyson Rupnow, Associate Director for Research with the Louisiana Transportation Research Center and instructor for LSU Department of Civil Engineering. Dr. Rupnow recently redeveloped a course for LSU Online, and he's graciously agreed to talk to us about what went into that process and highlight some of the best practices that he brought to his course in terms of instructor presence as well as developing what we call authentic assessments. So thank you for coming to talk with me.
Thank you for having me.
So just generally, could you introduce what is your course, what it's about, who is this course designed for? Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, my course is CE 7701, and it is a course on concrete materials, advanced concrete materials, and it is designed for students who wish to gain a more in-depth discussion and understanding of concrete, from the mechanics of how it works to the properties, how to better assess properties and distresses of those materials and concrete materials in general, and to prevent that type of distress. And then we finish off the course with a special topics portion that talks about all the different really cool things that we do with concrete. In general, the course is targeted for those types of students, master's degree, PhD level students that want to gain that mastery of that topic. In general, the students seem to enjoy it a lot. This is the second time I've developed a course similar to this, so it's been a fun process.
Great. Well, could you talk a little bit more about the process? You and I actually worked together on this course. I was your learning experience designer. Could you talk a little bit about maybe what your perceptions of the process were going in, and sort of what was the final result, and what are your thoughts on that?
So I'll be honest, when I first started this, I took the course from a different online situation where it was completely voice over PowerPoint, and I was very skeptical of the format I was being asked to put it in, mainly from feedback from other instructors and how much work it was to do that, but I said I would give it a fair shake, and I attacked it. My best recommendation for instructors is listen to your LXI. They know what they're doing, and try not to fight the system as much as possible, because in general, I believe what came out of the course is a condensed version of what you would see in a textbook. Comprehensive enough that you can learn something from it, but not as comprehensive and enough that you're going to put somebody to sleep from reading a PhD level textbook. So I enjoyed my time putting it together. It was a lot of hard work. I spent 2 to 4 hours a night, it seemed like, for several weeks on end to develop this, and that was a course I already had in a voice over PowerPoint. So in order to do that, it did take some time, and the effort was well worth it. One of the things that I enjoyed the most was I was able to update my existing program and incorporate newer, more technological advancements from the field of concrete materials, as well as to fix some of the errors that I had in my existing course.
So as you were going through and revising your resources, what was your thought process going in, and the things that you added, your perspective, and how do you think that benefited the course ultimately?
So one of my biggest fears is I wouldn't have enough material to constitute 3 credits when I put it all together, because my voiceover PowerPoints were very short. In most cases, they were an hour to an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours long. And I attributed that to the fact when I would teach it in a traditional classroom setting, if students, the feedback is instantaneous. If they don't understand it, you get a blank stare or something to that effect. And so you could stop, you could pause, you could highlight something, but in an online setting, you don't get that aspect. And so that was very difficult to me in the existing course I had. And then when I moved it into the format that we're in now with narrative, I was very concerned it wouldn't be long enough. And then we had conversations about inputting things like YouTube videos and stuff like that. And so I was able to incorporate things like YouTube videos, which YouTube's a phenomenal resource for a lot of very good information that comes out of such topics like this, where you can take things like cement hydration. That's one of the ones that I'm the most adamant about that my students would actually go watch, because Tyler Lay from Oklahoma State University produced this phenomenal video that takes a very complex, little understood chemical reaction and put it into a theater of sorts with his students.
There are very fun videos.
Yes, and that type of thing takes a concept that is extremely difficult to wrap your head around and actually puts it into a way that you can actually look at it, and that's a 15-minute video. And so with that, I don't believe I have an issue with the credit hour type
Yeah.
thing. So.
And so, just the final result of this process, where you and I would have conversations about, what do you want students to leave this module understanding, being able to demonstrate, and then what are the current resources you have and how can we improve those resources? So it really was a collaboration, and I think we ended up with a really rich multimedia resource where students are given graphics, they're given perspective from you, examples, context, and then those really, really great instructive videos. And you also created some videos yourself for the course.
Yes, I had created introductory videos for every single module, short, most of them are on the order of 30 to 90 seconds, but that was an interesting thing that I wasn't expecting to do, but I think it adds some to the content as well.
So in that same vein of instructor presence, you obviously aren't there to answer questions in person for students who are taking your course online. How did you build in opportunities to make yourself available to students to have your voice integrated into the online version of the course?
So one of the ways that I've done it is I have incorporated discussion forums. So every single module has a question or a series of questions that the students are required to respond to in the online format, and then they're required to respond to each other's. In that case, I tend to read every single one of those, which with a lot of students can take some serious time. But generally, if the discussion moves in the direction I think it should be moving, I let the students go and let them flesh it out themselves. If it's not moving in the direction that I feel it needs to, or they're completely missing an entire block of information, I will sometimes step in and say, this is a really good discussion. Has anybody really thought about this aspect of this? So I will actually come in and interject a post in there occasionally if I need to help facilitate that discussion. And then when the discussion forum period is over, generally on that following Monday or Tuesday, I will step in and I will comment on the general overall direction of the board, some of the good things, some of the bad things, and I'll say, all of this is what's been said, and here is my thoughts on it, and I will provide a short 5 to 8 sentence response and say, here's what the question was, and here's my thoughts on this, and if you'd like to have more discussion, please email me, and I keep that line of communication open. So that's one of the ways I do instructor presence. Another one is some of the different things like make myself available via email with a fairly quick turnaround time for assignments and issues with course content or something like that. Some of the students that are coming in, they may have not done as complex of a concrete mix design, and so there's generally questions that go along with that, so I make myself available to answer those. In some cases, there was a case where we were missing a figure that we missed up, and so I had to go quick find a figure and explain, so here's the figure, I apologize, so I put it on my little list of things to do and fix. So that's what we're, it's one of those things. So it's the first time it's taught, and we're tackling that.
Yeah. And so would you say that over the course of a semester, how would you characterize the relationship that you build with your online students?
The relationship is definitely different than what you would get in a traditional classroom. Interestingly enough, I get to know their names better than I would than in a traditional classroom, because you see their name in the email or on the post, and usually their pictures with it. So
I know sometimes you have phone conferences with students who have issues that need a little bit more attention or support.
Yes, and so I do that. I do have phone conferences or video conferences with students as well if I need to do that. And by and large, usually most everything's solved through email at this point in time.
Yeah.
But I have had some phone conversations with those, especially ones that are a longer ways away. One semester I had a student who was in Africa, and their internet connection was shaky and created all kinds of difficulties. And so we were able to correspond via email and then occasionally through the phone to resolve the issues.
Wow. It really shows you the entire world could potentially be taking your class.
Yes.
So let's turn and talk a little bit about your assessment. So that's how at the end of a module or at the end of the course, you can determine whether or not the students have learned the skills, knowledge, and abilities that you've set out for them to learn at the beginning of the course. And one thing that we are a big proponent of is designing assessments that are authentic or integrate real-world problems or a problem within a real-world context where students can apply what they've learned in a situation that would be similar to something they would see in the field, professionally. And I know that was something that was really, really important to you.
That is, as a practicing engineer, working for a public agency as my primary job, that is extremely important to me. So my end of the module assessments are three-pronged. I have the required discussion boards, which take general real-world type examples and force them to discuss those in an online forum with their peers. Then I do have some assignments that are very real-world, whether it be to generate a concrete mix design or to do an aggregate gradation. One of the ones that I'm particularly happy about and excited about is the assessment that makes them actually critically think about concrete distress. I give them a set of pictures, I give them the parameters, and it is an actual real-life example that I or somebody else within my work group at the Louisiana Transportation Research Center has had to tackle and try to determine what was the cause of this distress. And so we take that real-world example and I force the students into that and make them critically think about it to develop those critical thinking skills. So those are real life authentic things, and it's interesting to see what the students come up with and how they determine, how they resolve to solve those problems. And then the last assessments are a series of multiple choice or true false type questions that go over the printed material from the lecture.
And when you say real world, the images that you're using of the distress, just the distress concrete, are ones that you've taken from the field yourself. So
Exactly.
You can't get any more real world than that.
They definitely do not get any more real world than the pictures that we've taken from the actual field for the project. So in addition, a lot of the pictures from the material within the actual course are pictures that we've taken or pictures that colleagues of mine have taken from around the country.
Wonderful. So if you were, had an opportunity to talk to a faculty member who may be a little bit unsure about developing a course for LSU Online, what kind of things would you tell them?
I would tell them to embrace the technology. I think it's here to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere. I was too hesitant. I was hesitant at first as well, similar to what they are. But once I embraced it and realized what I needed to do and worked with my LXI, we produced something that I think is a very good example of something that can be done well and that the students will enjoy and get something out of it. Also that, this will not replace traditional master's or PhD students that are going to be doing research for you in a traditional setting. This is not intended to replace that. This is intended to supplement that. And I think once they get through that fear, I think it'll be, if they can get through that portion of the fear, I think that they will be able to step up to the plate and knock it out of the park. So.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for coming in to talk with me. That was Dr. Tyson Rupnow. His course is CE 7701, and he teaches for the Civil Engineering Department at LSU.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.